Hey, Marina.
Hi, ladies. I stopped it for a second because I've been here since like 4:40, and I was concerned like is nobody coming, so I was checking to see if everybody got the right link. So okay, we'll start shortly.
Hi, how y'all doing?
Ashley still. How are you feeling, ladies? Amy and Marina?
Much
Good.
better.
Good. Been
Wonderful.
drinking lots of water. So
Good.
if y'all hear me coughing, I'll have water here.
That's okay.
Same here.
Yeah, it's going around for sure. We're just going to wait on Ashley a couple minutes. She should be joining shortly.
She just sent an email saying that she was having trouble with the link.
Alba, you want to resend it to her? There she is.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi. So we have some powerful lights here at our office. So I do look a little bit like Casper, the friendly ghost, but don't mind that. I'm usually more rosy than this. So if I ever look like this in real life, call 911. Welcome everybody. I'm sorry about that. I was just making sure that everybody had the right link. I was concerned. I was wondering. I'm always early for stuff, so I was here early, and I was concerned that people were not logging in. But welcome.
There we go. Hi, Ashley. Can you hear me? Is it?
Good evening.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So everybody's on. We're right on time, so we can start right on time.
Good job.
Perfect.
Looking forward.
And ladies, I'm on through my phone, but I'm gonna attempt to get it back on my laptop. My laptop told me I needed to restart it. It didn't want to open the link. So
okay.
If you see me just briefly move away, I'm here. Okay. But I'm gonna keep it on the phone for now.
Okay.
As I rework that.
Understand. Those are the technology challenges right now.
See, 1 second. I'm just gonna make sure I have everything ready for you guys so we can begin.
Right now? There. You ready? You want to put the first slide on?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. And are we live?
Yes, we are live. We're recording this session, and we're going to share it with a lot of other business owners that signed up for the previous models so that they can, take advantage of this wonderful resource and all this information.
Okay, then we'll go ahead. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are very excited to be presenting the third module of a series of 3 that we did boot camps on different topics. And today's topic is extremely important in the new environment we're trying to navigate. The Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is committed to assisting business owners, rebound from the impact of COVID-19 and beyond, in rethinking strategies, in planning for the future, and definitely in what we've always known is important to small business owners in particular, access to capital, but even more so now. So I'm Mayra Pineda, President and CEO of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and on behalf of my board and membership, it's my privilege to welcome you today to this very star-studded panel that we have with our partners in the banking industry that are joining us today. And we know you will have very important takeaways from today's conversation. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome our moderator today, Ms. Marina Manzanares, a proud board member of our organization, but also Vice President and Community Development Officer for Metairie Bank. We have a longstanding partnership with Metairie Bank as well. So welcome, Amy, Ashley. And I know that Marina is going to formally introduce you, but we are delighted to have you here today. And this may be the last module of this series, but we know we're committed throughout 2021 and beyond of, definitely much more financial literacy, which is needed in our business community and community in general. So welcome again. Marina, take it away. Is Marina frozen?
I wonder if she's frozen. So, Marina, can you hear us? I think she is, because yeah, she logged off, but I'm pretty sure that we'll have her back.
Yes. Well, just to there, Marina, are you back? No. So while we get Marina back, these are the technology issues. I'd like to then, welcome Ashley Aubrey Harrison with Vice President of Community Affairs, Hancock Whitney. And Ashley, why don't you say a few, words about yourself before we get into the topic?
Hi, I'm sorry.
Sure. Well, good evening, and thank you so much for having me, Myra. It is such a pleasure to be a part of this wonderful group tonight and a part of this series that you all put together, which is so needed. Across our region, as many of you know, businesses are shuttering their doors. They're coming into our offices at the bank. They are pouring into offices of organizations like the Hispanic Chamber, trying to get at the resources that are available to them so that they can remain viable. And so tonight, I know we're going to spend a considerable amount of time talking about how to do just that, how to remain in business, how to thrive, and how to get to the next level while we're all still surviving this worldwide pandemic.
Exactly. We hear this every day, I think, about how business owners are having to make very difficult decisions. But I think it really makes a big difference when those decisions are informed and you can find alternatives or, options to what you may think is the end of the road. So thank you very much for that, Ashley. Much more to come, I'm sure. And, and then now we have Amy Barden and with Regions Bank, and we are delighted to have you here today. Marina is letting me know that she is trying to get back on. So, Amy.
I think that Marina's
Thank you.
back. I'm
Can
sorry.
you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but we can't see you.
I could see everyone.
Okay,
Oh,
now we can see.
I can see Marina.
Okay,
Okay, good.
wonderful. So
Okay.
I was just
Sorry about that.
briefly introducing and allowing Amy to say something about herself. Amy Barden, SBA lending specialist for Regions Bank. But Amy, would you like to share something more about yourself with us before Marina formally introduces you?
Well, again, just to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come on and talk to small business owners and try to help answer any questions they have and help them through these hard times. Echo everything that Ashley said. I mean, we're seeing unprecedented times right now, and it's new for us in the banking industry as well as in the small businesses. And large businesses for that matter. So we're all kind of learning together how to combat and try to prepare ourselves of what might come down the road next. I think we've certainly learned a lot of things from this that will help us to hopefully be better prepared if we do have a similar situation that comes about, hopefully not. But I think it's been a big learning experience for all industries and just here to do our part. We appreciate your partnership. I know we've done some other things with the Chamber, and so we appreciate you always including us in these opportunities.
Thank you very much. And we will continue that because together we can do much more. So Marina, it's all yours.
Well, thank you so much, Maida, and thank you, everyone. You could hear me properly, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
everything-
good. Well, thank you so much. And again, welcome everyone. Welcome to our panelists, and thank you for being here with us today. As Maida said earlier, my name is Marina Manzanares, and I am the Community Development Officer at Metairie Bank, and I also proudly serve the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. As we all know, the COVID-19 outbreak is forcing a lot of companies to explore how they can survive while grappling with the crisis of unprecedented proportions. In today's module, our panelists will share with us their insight on developing a restoration strategy for small businesses through long-term access to capital planning and networking opportunities. As you all heard just a few moments ago, we're joined today by Ms. Ashley Aubrey Harrison with Hancock Whitney Bank, where she serves as the Vice President and Community Affairs CRA Manager for the bank. She also she joined the bank back in April of 2013 and is responsible for fostering Community Reinvestment Act efforts across the communities the bank serves by facilitating strategic partnerships development and spearheading strategic sponsored bank sponsored initiative. In this role, she engages local, state, and federal government, as well as nonprofit organizations with community development interests to assess and assist in the credit and financial needs within a given community. In addition, Ms. Harrison has garnered over $1 million in funding to several nonprofit agencies along the Gulf Coast through a partnership with the Federal Home Loan Bank of Dallas. Ms. Harrison earned her Master's of Business Administration degree from the University of New Orleans and is also a graduate of the Loyola University New Orleans, where she received a bachelor's degree in social science. In addition to her years of community development work, her servant leadership includes volunteer services on a number of boards and committees. Currently, she serves as a board director for the Louisiana Appleseed Jericho Road Episcopal Housing Initiative and Project Homecoming. Harrison is a proud native of New Orleans and resides in a nearby suburb with her husband and twins, Robert and Avery. Welcome, Miss Aubrey. Hi. We also are joined today by Ms. Amy Barton, who is the SBA lending specialist and commercial banker for Regions Bank. Ms. Barton joined Regions Bank back in 2004 as a branch sales manager. Since 2004, she has held multiple roles within the bank. After serving as a branch manager, she held the role of Metro Market Manager, where she helped 27 branches in the greater Baton Rouge area servicing small businesses. Utilizing her knowledge in the small business arena, she moved into a relationship manager role in the commercial banking group in 2014, where she managed a portfolio of approximately 100 business clients. Ms. Barton helped to expand customers' relationship throughout the Great Baton Rouge region. Currently, she is serving as the SBA lending specialist for the commercial banking group in South Louisiana. In this role, she helps commercial clients with business acquisitions, expansion, and purchases of real estate and equipment. Amy holds the position of chairman of the board of Dream Teachers, a nonprofit organization that recognizes and rewards outstanding educators in the state of Louisiana. Amy also recently served as a member of the board of directors for the Livingston Parish Chamber of Commerce, where she is an education committee member and a graduate of the Leadership Livingston class of 2016. So just like Myra said earlier, we are joined here today by a very impressive and seasoned panelist. And I'm very excited and looking forward to everything that they have to share with us today. So thank you, ladies, for being here with us. You both play a very important role in the recovery of our region, especially our business community. We appreciate your dedication and your support to our community. Our goal today is that whatever operating environment your business is currently facing, whether your business is as usual, you're temporarily closed, you've adjusted to curbside or delivery, or just even pivoted to a whole new business model, we hope that you would take away some clear understanding on how necessary and important are to develop steps and strategies to be able to go into the recovery phase as well as networking strategy in order to keep the heartbeat of your business going beyond this crisis. So just so that we can have an idea on how the evening, how the format of it, the evening it's going to run, just going to share with you what's the format for the night. And we'll basically just take a few moments for each one of our speakers to share some insight on their areas of expertise. We'll kick off with Miss Amy sharing some of the resources available in order to develop a strategy that would lead to long-term access to capital. Then we'll have Ms. Ashley share with us with her expertise on the field of developing strong partnerships and best practices to tap into your network. I'll kick off the conversation after their brief presentations just by asking a few questions that would draw some of the key differences between these strategies. And finally, if we have time, we'll take some questions from the audience, especially those that may be that in order to address any of their challenges that they may be facing as they navigate to developing and implementing these strategies. I hope that sounds good for everyone. And with that being said, Amy, why don't you just take it away?
Thank you. I'll really keep it brief because I know we want to get to the questions and that the actual business owners have, and then some of the great questions that you've prepared for the panel tonight. So, I mean, in my role, I specifically work with the SBA lending side, but as you mentioned before, I worked as a commercial banker and a branch manager. So I've worked with a lot of different size businesses, and so have expertise in many areas, not just on the lending side or access to capital, but also helping them, to come up with planning strategies and also their everyday daily activities and making sure that they can run those activities efficiently. So that might be treasury management services. It might help with some HR payroll items. And of course, Regions has multiple partners and experts in all of those areas. So I kind of work as the quarterback for that, along with some of our commercial bankers. And so we evaluate that with the clients and pull in those experts in each of the areas to help them to run their business efficiently on a daily basis. So that's the basis of what we do at Regions on the commercial side. Marina, you're on mute. Marina, you're muted.
Telling you these technology challenges. We're going to need a seminar just for that. Sorry about that. Ashley, why don't you share with us some of those networking strategies that I know that you've had to expand on as you work through your career in community development?
Sure. So the one thing I neglected to do earlier, just trying to say hello, is to actually talk about what I do and the types of work that I've been involved in. So my role, I'm the community affairs manager for Hancock Whitney. We are across 5 states here in the Gulf South region. My role is to work with community organizations that are working towards the economic improvement of communities that we serve. In that role, I have the opportunity to build initiatives and to work across not only not-for-profit organizations, but also different government entities and other interested parties who are working toward economic improvement as well. One of the ways in which I've been able to do that is our bank piloted about 2 years ago, Small Business Matters, which is our key sort of strategy for working with small businesses, helping to connect them to the bank, and also giving them some sort of touch point with the bank that goes beyond walking into a bank branch, right? So we provide entrepreneurship training. We link them up with organizations such as the Louisiana Small Business Development Center so that they have continued resources and networks such as what you're speaking of now. And that is just so important that any of the businesses that are on the call today or that have been participating in this series, you have to have, tools in the toolbox, right? And one of those major tools is connecting with technical assistance providers. they have access to a wealth of not only knowledge to help you to grow your business or start your business, but also to help you capitalize and fund your business. So they will be in touch with not only financial institutions like many of us on this call, but they're also aware of alternative types of financing alternatives. And so these are the types of resources you need to know about, particularly as you plan to weather this storm, which we know we're going to be in for at least another year. So my biggest advice to anyone listening tonight is to find at least two key technical assistance providers and stay connected to the chamber, because these entities are going to be able to provide you with information as it's coming on board, whether it's similar to the Main Street Recovery Program that we just had, or other types of resources of that nature to help you again to grow and to stay afloat.
Thank you so much for that. And this is definitely a lot of key information that I know that a lot of our audience will definitely we hope that you do take that advice. Now, why don't we jump into the Q&A portion that we've had drafted. And like I said, after that session, we'll go ahead and open it for the questions from the panelists. And just in case anyone is shy and does not want to speak up, you could always add on the type on the chat box. You could always add your questions and we will ask them out loud. So please don't be shy. If you're shy to speak up, type them up and we'll make sure to address them. We want to make sure that anything that we can't provide any guidance, that you don't leave today with that question like, I should have asked that. So my first question is going to be for Ashley, just so that we can stay in the topic of this module. Which is recovery and business continuity. Can you go into what the difference is between a business continuity plan and versus a business plan?
That's a great question. And I'm certainly not going to claim to be an expert in answering it, but I'm going to give you my opinion. So one of the things that I had the pleasure of doing over my career is actually underwriting small business loans for an alternative lender. And I can just tell you, it's almost like a continuity plan if I'm taking it in the right context in terms of the pandemic. It's almost like a crisis management, right? If you can combine that with also sort of forward looking, because a business plan in a normal environment, you're really looking at what is your industry makeup, what is your product mix, does it make sense where you're trying to target, what is your market segmentation and things of that nature. You're looking at how are you going to be able to bring that product to the given market and become successful, right? And that's made up of many different things or many different pieces, your financial outlook, et cetera. With a continuity plan, in my opinion, you're going to be looking to see really assessing where you are financially today. That is a very big deal. What are my shortfalls today? Am I continuing to do business year to date today as I was last year at the same time? Am I doing better? Am I doing worse? If I'm doing worse, why is that? And really taking a deep dive into your individual situation and circumstances. What has happened to your individual industry? Are you a restaurant, for example? How are you individually being impacted in this moment? Are there some things in your business model that are working well? Are there some things that are not, right? I can give you an example. I just had this conversation with one of our bankers, and we were talking about a particular business that sells beads and things of that nature and how well they're doing now. We were both kind of shocked about it, right? And he said, what some of the basic changes they made to sort of survive this is they took a look at their operating model in terms of what times were they open, when was business actually coming in. So what they were able to do was to make adjustments to the business opening and closing times, which of course impacts what? Your overhead. It impacts the amount of staff you have in, when, and where, so that they were able to streamline and become efficient in how they were spending, as well as to take clear advantage of when their customer base really like coming in and they're doing well, right? And so those are the sorts of things you really want to think about, is what is working, what is not working, what changes can I make to, again, look at my expenses, because again, we're in this thing for a while. Okay, and where can I find ways to become more efficient, to save money, right? And also to save staff, right? And so you want to look at various strategies in, again, your operations, as well as, again, taking into account your finances. And one also key thing, I believe, Marina, is then thinking about what comes next. How do I become even more efficient utilizing technology, right? So I know a lot of folks on this call, you guys have been in the business probably longer than myself. You're familiar with Steve Jobs and his famous, quote, or his famous ideology about, you have to constantly innovate. If not, you become the dinosaur, right? You become extinct. And so even prior to the pandemic, you should have been thinking about becoming more competitive by keeping up with the technology of the Joneses, so to speak. That is still true today. I would not suggest that you turn an eye to the technological advances that are happening right now. It may be the deal breaker between why you stay in business and your neighbor across the street goes out of business. So those are some of the things that you want to take advantage of. And there's so many different services now, different apps, for example, that allow you to manage projects, right? To better manage your time management and things of that nature. And by all means, at this point, we have to move to a touchless society. So if you're not there digitally, then you need to get there. And certainly having a great banking partner will help with that, because many of us on this call have merchant services where we can offer those sorts of things to help you become touchless.
Right. Yeah, you absolutely have to keep up. And one big difference or big component on is that you don't want to be, when it comes to business planning, right? You plan for the business that you're going to introduce. That's how you normally will think about it. But one thing that I think that if we've all learned from this crisis that we're currently in, right, is that being reactive is not necessarily the best way. So if anything, this kind of opened a lot of our small business community's eyes that you do have to have the right planning in place. And if you don't, this is the time to do that if you do want your business to go into the future and pivot how you're going to get there as well, right? Because the way that you would think how you were going to get through 2021 in 2019 is no longer the way that we're going to do that. So definitely very important in, like you mentioned, taking advantage of all the technology advances if your business is not there, and reaching out to the right resources, the technical assistance providers like the chamber, and so that can connect you. And just like you mentioned, your bank, having a partner at your bank, it's so very important, because a lot of people just think, when you think of a bank, I'm just going to go when it comes to the money part. But there's so many other aspects in banking that can really foster and help that small business into success. So now I'm actually going to jump into a banking question, and I'm going to direct this to Amy. Amy, how can you share with us, how can small businesses, especially now with all the financial crisis, if you may, that a lot of them may be facing, how can they better prepare before approaching a lender? Because one of the key things of being bankable, lendable, whatever you want to call it, right, is to be prepared. So before they make that call, and a lot of times, you know, our small businesses are scared because they don't know where to start. So maybe this can give them an idea on how to start getting prepared so that they're confident when they're approaching their lender.
So it's a great piggyback off the first question. Again, to reiterate how important a business plan is. And a lot of the times people do think that it really is just for the initial plan of how do I get this business started, but it never stops. You should always be adapting and adding to that business plan. A lot of the times if you go into Access Capital, and you want to go see a lender about expansions, they're going to ask for a business plan. So to take that basis from when you started the business and just continually adding to it. The other thing about the continuity and keep, you know, you're always changing that. But I think one thing that a lot of business owners don't include in that plan is their transition out of the business. And what is that going to look like? When is that going to happen? What is their ideal date? Because I mean, most owners at some point are going to want to do some type of transition, whether that is to another family member or a key employee, or maybe just sell it outright to someone else. It just depends. Or maybe they want to, you know, grow larger first and then be able to sell it off for a bigger profit. So all those things are really important pieces that they need to have in those plans. And I think you can, you know, see where you're going and where you're headed, and you can prepare for that. And what if a larger company comes to you and says unexpectedly, 5 years before you plan to get out of the business, and says, hey, wait, we want to scoop you up, we want to make you this offer, and then it becomes a reality a lot sooner than the business owner thought. But if they had that transition piece kind of already planned out in their mind, that might help them through the possibility of, is this the right time, or do I wait until I originally planned to get out of the business? So all those are good things to have in the plan. And those are things that a lender is going to look for. Has the business owner thought through all of these different you know, situations, and do they have a plan in place? Do they understand where their business started, where it's going? Also, just a very, very good understanding of their financials. We see so many times that small business owners, even large business owners, but especially small business owners, you know, they're the operators of these businesses. They're in the daily, every single day, and the financial side of things sometimes falls to the wayside, or they give it to their CPA and say, here, handle it, because they know they have to file their taxes, they have to pay this, they have to take care of these things. But they don't necessarily carve out the time to really spend to sit down with their CPAs or bookkeepers, or a combination of those folks that help them on the financial side, to have a true understanding of their financial situation, which also makes it really hard for them to do any type of forecasting for sales. And it makes it hard for them to make those quick changes when things come about, like the situation we're dealing with. Like Marina mentioned earlier, the word pivot. I think that's like our key word for 2020 and probably moving forward, pivot. And if you can't quickly pivot these days, then there's a chance you might not exist any longer. And it's key to understanding those financials and knowing where you're going, where you've been, what has helped you, what hasn't helped you. And I think a good, strong CPA, bookkeeper, those, and a bank, and your banker too, can help you with those types of things. So current financial information, but also historical. A lot of the times I see, you know, we look for multiple years worth of historical financials, and if there's been a change in their revenues, their gross revenues, we want to understand why. Why did it go? Why did you have a really good year and then a lower year? Why did you, you know, have different ups and downs, and what affected that? Because we have to understand that as well. And so I think making really good notes in those years and to go back and reference, because I find that it's really hard for business owners to remember. So much has happened. And like I said, they're in the daily grind. So they don't always think back and say, oh, wait, I forgot we had this one big event that happened that really affected that. And if they can really communicate that with their lenders, that helps tremendously because we have to be able to tell the story. You know, me personally, I don't do the actual underwriting and approvals on deals, so I have to understand the business and understand those challenges that the business has had to be able to convey that to our underwriting group. And I'm sure it's the same way with smaller banks that might have a loan committee or whatever that, you know, however they facilitate those decisions. Somebody has to be able to tell the story of why the financials look the way they do, good, bad, or, you know, whatever the situation might be. So just business owners having a real good understanding. And then again, it's working with those partners. And you'll probably hear that in every answer that Ashley and I give tonight. It's always having a good set of resources. And the chamber is always a great resource. Ashley mentioned the SBDC. There's locations all over the state. They are great, and it's a free service. And they help. That's what they do all day, every day, is help businesses, and not only businesses that are just getting started, but that want to continue that plan and want to understand and know where they need to go. And so they help with a lot of that. There's another local resource SCORE. Is another free organization that helps a lot of business owners, and they do some of that similar planning with them. And I find that a lot of those volunteers are business owners or have been, you know, former business owners, so they can give some real information and real guidance and help people by showing and telling their experiences that they've had and things that might have helped them or didn't help them, because we learned from both of those. So I think all of those things together and partnering with their CPA as well, and ahead of time to have all that understanding together really helps when they go to a lender to present it, to say, okay, this is what I'm trying to do and this is why.
Good. I always joke with my customers. I say, you know, when it comes to especially as a lender, I'm basically your attorney. Just think of me as your attorney that has to explain to the judge what your, you know, whatever your charge and how we're going to defend you. So it's basically the same thing. I'm the lender, and I need to be able to convey to the underwriter whether it's a good, you know, the good and bad of your business, so that we can actually make it happen, and not holding back any of that information. A lot of times people hold back information, and just the fact that they held it back is what hurts, not the actual information itself. So
yeah, everything's important.
Absolutely. Because there's always, you know, we could always figure out a way on how to, if that's an issue, how can that be addressed? So definitely very important. And I know that, Amy, you just mentioned some of these resources, because obviously a small business, you can't do it all alone. As a business owner, I mean, you have everything from employees to customers to your own family, right? There's a lot of business owners are their families depend on your business, so it's a lot of responsibility. So you can't leave it all to you figuring it all out. So it's very important to rely on a team. So Ashley, why don't you go and dive a little bit into who should be involved in the development of a business restoration plan, and what are important steps to take when considering when developing this plan?
Sure. So let me start with the who. I believe the who should be similar to the same who that you would have gotten when you did it the first time, right? So whether it's, as Amy pointed out, your CPA, or the person who is helping you with your finances, your local technical assistance provider, like we talked about, and hopefully you've had an opportunity to work with a good banker that you trust to give you some insights, because there are things that they're going to see with their other clients, experiences they'll have that they can share with you as well. So those would be sort of your key people, you know, from the financial aspect of it. A financial advisor also, as Amy spoke to, is a good idea as well, because you have to always be looking forward, right? And so some of the decisions you may want to make when you're just relying on information from the here and now does not account for things that you may want to begin getting ready for, even in the midterm, you know, the 2 to 3 year mark. So I would say definitely pull those key people in and pull the TA provider in, whether it's the SBDC or the SCORE, gosh, we have so many entities in our area. Jetco, for example, has wonderful resources as well. And so getting with those entities in terms of your steps, the very first one, and I used to teach financial literacy. The very first thing we should say is sort of know where you stand, right? Take a hard assessment of your cash flows, you know, what's coming in, what's going out, taking a look at, again, what's been working well, what has not, and then figuring out what some of your next steps are. Definitely do a market analysis. Doesn't have to be super sophisticated. You can certainly work with these resource partners we've spoken of, excuse me, in terms of getting after that information, but also doing a little Google search yourself. There are lots of resources out there, and just finding out, hey, you know, I'm in hospitality, or I'm in, you know, the medical profession, and let me take a look at what's been happening in healthcare here in the last, you know, year to 18 months. So just taking the time to assess your situation, and also looking at what is going on in the market is going to be essential to mapping out a full plan.
Good, good. Absolutely. I know it can sound overwhelming at times, but sometimes it's just taking, like you said, taking that first step, taking the time, and then it's just like the floodgates, they just open, right? I mean, it could be something as
Absolutely.
simple as, you know, doing a Google search or calling a TA provider, and it kind of just cascades from there. So
And
definitely very, very important.
absolutely.
Now,
And I do also, oh, I'm so sorry, Marina.
go ahead, go
But
ahead.
one of the things I think is key, sort of getting back to earlier about your network can also include other business owners, other entrepreneurs,
Absolutely.
because again, you're going to be facing similar issues. And at times, you know, some of your peers have found workarounds or have found various solutions that you can also take advantage of. So it's very key to have like-minded individuals, you know, around you as well, to help, again, you to formulate those ideas and those strategies. As they say, iron sharpens iron. So
Absolutely. No, that's definitely very key advice there. Now, Amy, most small businesses have depleted their cash reserves, and lending or access to capital is not always the solution for them. Now, what are some tactics that you could share with the small businesses to replenish their reserves in the middle of a crisis?
This is a really tough one. So obviously we've learned that you have to be prepared for these unexpected events, which I'm sure a lot of businesses weren't. And, you know, especially to the caliber of this event. I mean, we're going into 2021 very shortly. And I think a lot of us at the beginning expected it to last a few months and be done. And now we're not really sure when that end is going to be. So I would say, again, I mean, we can't reiterate how many times to have those resources and partners to help develop those tactics, the contingency plan. I think to be able to replenish their cash reserves, there's a lot of things that go into that. I think they need to do a lot of research to try to take advantage as much as they can right now of some of the relief funds. So making sure that they have searched for any possible grants, any of the relief efforts and money that's been put out there for small businesses. Take advantage of everything. I know sometimes it's stressful because it's a lot of paperwork and a lot of documentation. And again, back to what I said before, business owners are in the daily trench every day, just trying to make sure that, you know, they get their business open and it runs every day and they're trying to make sales. But unfortunately, it's going to take some long hours and, you know, sleepless nights to get in there and do those applications. But take advantage of every dollar that you can get right now. And then reevaluate your budget and take a look at that and see budget out a certain percentage of your profits to put back into savings to try to build those cash reserves back. If it's 5%, 10%, I mean, just even the smallest amount, at least start to do that, and try to get those reserves built up, because lenders are not only going to look at, what your historical financials are, how you've been impacted by the pandemic and what your sales are now, what your plan is moving forward, how did you pivot, all of those things. They're also going to look to see what cash reserves you have. And so, and what assistance that you've taken advantage of, and have you tried to do some of these things as well to be able to access capital. But I think all of those have to be looked at and have to be done, to try to help them through the crisis.
Absolutely. And it's so important to even just, sit down as a business owner and understand that why would I need reserves? How much of a reserve should I have to, whether it's to last a month, 6 months? A lot of times you talk to small business owners and they couldn't tell you an actual figure. So understanding what's going to carry your business through the next month, the next 6 months, or it's so critical. So even if it's just starting, I think with getting a clear understanding of that and then working from there, and at that point determining whether it's going to be 5%, 10% of profits or whatnot. I think it's definitely it's key, because if anything, like I said earlier, we've learned from this is that we have to be we have to be better prepared. Now it always happens, right? Once you're prepared, kind of like we did with hurricanes, we prepared and the hurricane was coming and then it didn't come. And then the time that we did not prepare, then it did come. So it's kind of one of those things, but it's better to be prepared than not. So definitely starting and understanding what reserves you need to be able to carry you through whether it's a crisis. In our area, it may not be next time a pandemic, but it could certainly be, just like we had a very active hurricane season this year, that can be something that could also cause business interruption and disruption in the future. And that's more likely, if anything, to happen in our area than what another pandemic or a crisis of this magnitude. So if anything, I think this is definitely going to better prepare our small business owners to be able to tackle these challenges in the future. And and I know we may sound like a broken record just talking about having those technical assistance providers and reaching out to your network and your partners. It's so critical so that they can actually guide you and help you carry you through those resources that you will need as a business, because the environment is always going to be changing. There's always going to be something that is going to be changing in today's world, right? Now, Ashley, how can small businesses better prepare and approach demand disruption? And how can they tap into their network, or how can their network actually play? I know that you kind of touched a little bit about it on earlier, but how can the network play a role in maintaining their demand?
Well, sort of just to piggyback off of the last portion of the discussion, as Amy alluded to, you have to, again, try as best you can once you get on your feet to start sort of putting aside some funds, right? So that's key, no matter what. I would also add to that, maintaining good credit. I had a conversation with my mother recently where she had sort of read some AARP recommendations, and they were great recommendations, certainly, for staying debt free. However, I had to explain to her is at all times, you still need to have available credit. So I told her, don't go closing out your 20-year-old credit card in an effort to be debt free. Go ahead and pay it down to zero balance,
Right.
but maintain it. And she, so we sort of went back and forth about that, but it's the same for a business, right? Whether it's, having access to a line of credit in the business name or the business credit card, for example, you want to maintain a positive credit relationship so that there are times when you're not tapping your entire cash reserve. Cash is still king, but credit to me is an equal and just as important player. So I would say that. And then I will also say again, in terms of your peer networks, as well as the organizations that you're working with, there are people that you will come into contact with that you had no idea could assist your business in some way, because you may not have an understanding of what their business entails, or you may not know the types of resources that they're tied to. So having relationships that run outside of your normal circle of friends, families, and neighbors is very essential, because again, it just gives you another opportunity to tap into additional resources.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great advice there. Now, Amy, I know that you've seen a lot of small businesses, especially now trying to access capital. What are the biggest challenges that you see them face in today's financial environment?
Gaining access to that capital.
Is the biggest challenge, yeah.
That really is. I mean, and it's tough because, as grant money is running out, hopefully we'll see some replenishments of some of that next year, and some of the bills that are going to be passed, fingers crossed. But access to capital has been the toughest. And really, it for a lender, the reason it is we're having to be a little stricter than we normally would, which I know businesses are hopeful that we would be more lenient at this time to help out, but we have to really, really understand and be able to mitigate the risks. And so a big piece of the puzzle for us is we have a specific COVID-19 impact questionnaire that we use, and it goes through and asks some specific questions about that business and how they've been impacted. And sometimes it is helpful for, I think, for the business owner, because it sometimes makes them sit back and have to go through those questions and really evaluate how have I been impacted? I mean, obviously everybody knows a lot of them have been impacted by cash or staffing or, some of the everyday things, but it goes a little deeper than that. And so we as lenders have to really be able to understand that and understand how, like we mentioned before, how they're pivoting. What did they do to make it through this so far? And it's not over. So what are they going to continue to do? And what does that plan look like? So it's still tough, though. A lot of people obviously now are learning more and more about SBA lending. I know it's always been out there for a very long time, but people weren't as aware of what it is. And I think people are still learning what it is. But obviously through the PPP loan process, that gave a lot of businesses some relief, especially to be able to continue to pay employees and, hopefully keep them on if they had to close their doors and so forth. So they learned and tasted a little bit about SBA. And it's been different than some of the previous disaster type loans. And I know in our communities here locally, people have dealt with a lot of those types of loans as well. But now they're learning and seeing, hey, there's some SBA opportunities maybe to help my business to move forward, whether it might be for expansion at some point or refinancing some debt opportunities now. So I think it gives them opportunity to stretch out some of that debt a little longer than on a conventional loan. SBA obviously is there focused on the businesses and trying to help specifically with getting them through these tough times. So we've seen a lot more inquiries on SBA lending from small business owners now. So I'm encouraged by that. I hope that gives us an opportunity to really help those businesses to make it through these tough times. But I would say that access to capital is still the toughest thing that most businesses are going through right now.
And just to stay kind of on that topic, Amy, can you elaborate a little bit, just for those in our audience that may not be too familiar with what the role of the SBA the SBA is when it comes to lending? And can you just talk a little bit about the difference between an SBA loan and a conventional loan in a commercial environment?
Sure. So just a quick and easy comparison, a conventional loan on the commercial side, in most instances, and I'm going to speak a little more towards Regions underwriting guidelines because I know those specifically, but other banks are similar. On a conventional loan, there's typically going to be shorter terms for the type of collateral used for those loans. So maybe a couple of examples for a conventional loan for equipment, let's say. You might be looking at a 5 or 7 year term, depending on the useful life of that equipment. Whereas on an SBA loan, we might be able to stretch that term a little longer to maybe a 10-year or even a little longer in some cases, depending on the type of equipment. Same thing for like an acquisition if they're going to acquire an existing business. Those would typically on the conventional commercial side run around 7 years, maybe even 5. Whereas we could stretch those out to 10, in some cases, maybe 15, depending on what other types of collateral is involved. Real estate is the real hot button right now, and that's the biggest comparison because on a conventional loan, commercial loan for real estate, typically owner occupied, most banks don't go, a lot of them will do a 5-year term with a 15-year amortization. So that note's a little lower, but they have that balloon note and reset every 5 years. Some will go a little longer, just depends on the bank's underwriting guidelines. But on an SBA owner occupied real estate loan, you can go actually up to 25 years. So that gives a lot more flexibility. And SBA loans do not have balloon payments. So everything is fixed and amortized for the same term. So that helps, especially for those long-term investments like real estate for customers. Also, we can have a portion of the loan unsecured. On a conventional commercial loan, typically you have to have dollar for dollar collateral and match those up. And so on the SBA side, there can be a portion that we would consider unsecured because we're getting a guarantee up to a certain percentage from SBA itself. So it allows us to kind of step out of our conventional underwriting box and be able to do that. And so that helps as well. And we also can take some additional different collateral. That's where sometimes their personal residence, a second lien maybe on their personal residence might come into play, or some other assets they have. So you can kind of combine some collateral to help out with that. Whereas on the conventional commercial side, it's pretty much, whatever your purpose of the loan is, you're going to match that collateral. You're not going to tie up other types of collateral and kind of do a cross collateralization. They keep it straight to the purpose of that particular loan. So SBA can be very helpful in a lot of those points.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Now, this question is for both of you ladies, and you can answer in whichever turn. But I just wanted you guys to share some ways people from your industry, which obviously is the banking industry, are making an impact in the recovery of our economy.
Sure. So I
think Ashley froze. So Amy, why don't you go?
Okay. So regions, we're out in the community. We have, similar to Ashley's role at her bank at Whitney, we have a CRA development officer. So we're always out there trying to look for opportunities to partner with the chambers, other organizations like she mentioned, JEDCO, SBDC, all of those to participate in these types of events. So to do different educational series, to help small business owners. Obviously, we did a lot of those before in public and in group settings, but we've been trying to, as much as we can, participate in them through Zoom or WebEx meetings. So we do a lot of education. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. So we do have a specific department called Next Step Financial Wellness. And so we have 2 representatives that cover our Louisiana area, South Louisiana area, and they help with that. And they do a lot of seminars, and that could be seminars for businesses and business owners. It also could be seminars to do financial education and wellness for those businesses' employees, because we have found in a lot of studies that most employees, a lot of them that are under stress are under financial stress. And when they bring that to work with them, their production goes down. They might take more time off of work. There's a lot of other issues that go along with it. So we found that it's very important to educate not just the business owners, but their employees on how to handle their finances and be successful. and budgeting tools and other things. So that way they can kind of have less stress in that area. And then it helps them to be more productive and at work, which in turn, of course, helps the businesses to be more productive. So we offer a lot of that. And those are all free services that we offer to our customers of Regions Bank. And we do a lot of that. All of that right now is virtual. But even under normal circumstances, we have a lot of it that is online based, and it's courses they can take through that service. So that's another free resource. So a lot of those partnerships that we've been doing to try to help impact.
Awesome, good deal. So Ashley, before you froze, I don't know if you had a chance, I know you were getting ready to answer, but can you just share with us some ways people from our industry are making an impact in the recovery of our economy?
Sure. So to echo Amy's point around the financial education, I know for sure here at Hancock Whitney, we are participating in various virtual opportunities such as the one tonight. We are sharing some of our small business matters, entrepreneurship training to the masses wherever possible, working with different organizations, different SBDCs across our footprint to get information out there on what businesses can be doing now. We were out there spreading information about those initial recovery resources that became available through the federal government. And we are now working to share information about loan forgiveness through PPP, for example. So just being at the forefront of communicating with the community, providing that financial education, entrepreneurship education, and also participating in lending opportunities and providing capitalization needs of businesses.
Awesome, good deal. And now, Ashley, I mean, I know we've mentioned this, and you know, the format of tonight's seminar is obviously remote, right? And that just goes with the territory that we're living in today. Everything has changed when it comes to networking. That actually, you know, being one. Besides going remote and doing virtual, how do you say that the outbreak has changed the way that we network? And what do you predict that would happen going forward?
I wish I had a crystal ball, Marina. Right. So certainly just the inability to have that face-to-face contact has been startling, certainly for someone like myself, and I'm sure Myra as well, who are so accustomed to being out there, meeting and talking with people face to face and getting things done. It is a very different environment, but I will sort of give kudos to Zoom and other sort of application providers who have considered that this is actually a good tool. It started to me as a bridge between face-to-face and sort of the telephone. I think that a lot gets lost through phone and internet, email, that sort of thing. But I think this has been a good, again, in between solution. I think it's here to stay in terms of predictions. I don't think we will ever go back to where we were. I think as vaccines become available and folks become more comfortable getting out into the crowds and our restrictions ease up, that there still will be some aspect of just doing business and networking that we will want to sort of hold on to this format because it's efficient. Correct. So for example, I've been talking to a lot of my partners that sort of just jumped onto the virtual world early on, and they're just telling me how their classes, their sessions are a lot more well attended than in previous times. So right now we were running we just completed a sort of intensive entrepreneurship training course in the Baton Rouge area. And just the sheer volume of people who were interested in attending, and the folks that came, and they came every single week, week after week, you're talking 11 weeks, of intensive training is just something you don't normally get when you're doing that sort of training in person. You know, you have absenteeism, tardiness, etc. But there is something about this virtual format that is more accessible to more people. So I don't think it's going away. I think we're going to find at some point a sort of happy medium, a good blend between face-to-face and virtual. But for training, for conferences, for communication purposes, for education, I think this may be a go-to resource.
I completely agree with you. And I'll share, I partner with a local housing agency, and I teach financial literacy as well there. And just looking at the beginning of the year in years past, our attendance to our classes were somewhere between 5 to 15 people, right? And now when we do our Zoom calls, I mean, we have about 25, 30 people. And like, just like you say, they're going to every single session. So, and everyone's on time. It's just, and it's on their own time. It just definitely makes it, although it's some sort of, it's a new normal, but it's also, the good thing is it's an efficient normal. So
Yeah.
it's not something that, although we kind of all just threw it together and all had to kind of dive into and understand how to navigate. And I'm still trying to navigate myself. So
Same.
some of these technology challenges, is definitely an efficient way of continuing and keeping people together as well, because not just on the business environment, it's also happened across the board when it comes to families getting together, schools continuing to provide the education for our children and things of that nature. So it's definitely, it's very interesting to see how it all kind of just has evolved. And I agree with you, it's going to be a way. I think you're going to see a lot more students, especially in college, they're going to choose doing online classes. Before, doing online classes for college, it was not a big thing. It's going to
Right.
become a big thing. So, not knocking University of Phoenix, but a lot of people were like, no, I'm not doing that. It's online. It's not real school.
Mhm.
But now it's like
Exactly.
every university is online. So,
That's right.
absolutely
They were
awesome.
forward thinking.
Absolutely. Yep, definitely. Now, Amy, what is one piece of practical advice you would give someone starting a business in the middle of this pandemic? We've seen a lot of that happening and new ideas, but at the end of the day, still starting a business in the middle of a pandemic. What advice would you share with them?
Research, research. Make sure you talk to people in that industry, experts in that industry, really get a real good understanding of what has gone on for them in that particular industry through this, businesses that have been around. I think both of you probably had mentioned this before about, I know Ashley, especially about getting with other business owners. And there are some CEO roundtables for different size businesses that are around. So that's something that business owners can Google and find out and see how to participate in some of those. But those are great because you're sitting there with those business owners that are, like she said, going through the same issues. And I think that would be even more important right now. If you're looking to start a business, to try to see if you could tap into those resources so you can have a true understanding, because I think they're pretty candid in those meetings and discussions of what their challenges are. And I think that's the biggest thing. You got to know what's going on with that industry, because some might have done really well through this, but is that sustainable? Just because they made it through the pandemic and they had a huge lift in their numbers, is that sustainable? Is it something that's going to continue as things kind of change and evolve again? Because we obviously are not at the end of it. So I just research, and make sure you have a very strong business plan and include some of that continuity plan in there as well, and understand what you're getting into, because I think opening any type of business right now is a really big challenge.
Right, and there's definitely there's no data right now that's going to be able to tell us how to project it, and it's kind of hard to project right now regardless of the industry. So I definitely I agree with you. Now, Ashley, why don't you share with us some critical changes that businesses must make in order to face the future effectively?
So, number one, you must become touchless. You have to make sure that your clients can access your products and services without actually seeing you, right? Or seeing your staff. You have to make sure that your web presence is, fluid, that it is user friendly, that is efficient and it works, that you're maintaining the same level of top-notch customer service online that you would at your storefront. Making sure that if you're providing delivery of those services or products, that you are keeping up with your competition, based on your industry. Again, now is the time, if you have not already found ways to sort of improve your technology, now is the time. And it doesn't have to always be, these very expensive investments. There's so much competition out there. I was having a conversation with another one of our lenders, about ways in which retailers are utilizing programs such as Square, for example, to take non-cash payments. And, from our institution's point of view, we use the Clover app. And there are a lot of different types of service providers at every budget. And so there really isn't going to be an excuse anymore as to why you cannot assist your client base in a way in which keeps them safe and socially distanced, and again, keeps you current.
Absolutely. That's definitely very important. You have to, like you said, keep up with the technology Joneses in a sense. You definitely do. Now, in terms of our local business community, Amy, what has been some of the most resilient in businesses that you've seen, and the way that they've adapted to doing business, and what are they doing?
Um, so some manufacturing has, depending on their goods that they're manufacturing, but I think they've been able to continue to be successful. Maybe have had some slowdowns or stretch out their terms of how quickly they can turn things around and produce them depending on the demand, or where they're receiving their materials from. So it just really depends on the goods and services. I know restaurants have really been hit hard, but I think a lot of them have really done a good job. The ones who did pivot pretty quickly, I'm gonna keep using your word, but those that did make those changes quickly and either added a delivery option, added a curbside pickup, made those changes. I think in every industry, whichever business owners made those quick changes are the ones that have been able to survive. So I think you're going to have those in every industry. So I don't know that there's one specific one that's been the best. Grocery stores, maybe. Our toilet paper and paper towel manufacturers, distributors, for sure. So some of those industries that are the necessities, and the essentials that everybody had to make sure that they're continuing to maintain and get. But I think really it boils down to whoever made the best changes quickly and went to the other resources like Ashley mentioned about websites. And let's not forget social media. I mean, if there was a business that wasn't on social media before, they better be on it now. And some industries just can't survive without it. She mentioned retail. Retail can't survive without it. And you've seen a lot of retailers go to doing more Facebook Live or Instagram TV, or, a lot of that, trying to get and continue that face-to-face interaction with those customers, even though they might not be able to come into their doors or not as comfortable coming into their doors, to be able to still maintain that contact. So I think, all those different industries, as long as they're doing those things, they're going to continue to come out okay at the end of this.
Yeah, I think the message just kind of keeps going, like what Ashley was saying earlier, is that, as long as you were able to become remote or become virtual, it didn't matter what industry, it doesn't matter what industry you are, as long as you're able to have some sort of plan to implement that.
And I think a lot of businesses are going to continue to use those platforms to continue, to grow their business in those ways as well. They've probably seen and identified some new revenue streams that they didn't know were there before. But I also think they're going to see some savings and some efficiencies from those too, because you see a lot of businesses of all sizes that see, oh, well, now my workforce can be remote. And so maybe I don't need that office space anymore.
Yeah.
So maybe that's an expense that I can cut back, and that'll help me to be able to improve my cash flow or replenish my cash reserves, or, so they're seeing some ways to cut costs too by making some of those changes and adapting.
Absolutely. And I always sort of, in my own circle, tell folks to take a look at Chick-fil-A, right? We laugh about it, but those guys just get it. They get forward thinking and they get creating efficiencies and constantly changing. And look what they've been able to do even in the pandemic. If you've been paying attention, I saw a social media post that said, let Chick-fil-A go and sort of implement the pandemic restrictions and everything in place, but for the government, and of course the person was trying to be funny, but they are efficient. And if you really look at them, from that standpoint, from a sort of business structure and model standpoint, I mean, they really are an inspiration. So.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I've seen exactly what you're talking about on social media, a little meme or whatnot that it's gone around. Absolutely. Now, just and kind of staying on that topic, Ashley, I mean, we've all gone, like Amy mentioned earlier, if there was a business that did not have social media before, they have one, they better get one, or they need to, or they already went into having one. And I really don't think there's a business out there that has not at least tapped into that if they've stayed in business. Now, what are some best practices that small business owners can adopt in order to ensure clear and transparent communication with their customers during the crisis, the COVID-19 crisis? Because it's one thing to be on social media, to have a website, but you also have to have some sort of strategy on how to communicate and communicate a clear message to your customers. So can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. So I'll just sort of go back for a moment into sort of marketing 101, right? Which basically says that people have to be touched 3 times, right? In almost 3 different ways in order to get whatever the message is. Mm-hmm. And so as you alluded to, whether it's, you're taking advantage of social media, make sure you have Facebook, make sure you have Twitter, make sure you're on LinkedIn. Okay. Get after every possible avenue. If you're into social media, and if you're not, you need to get in there now, right? There is no industry that is untouched by social media. And I'm going to tell you this, it's one of the least expensive ways to spread your message and to sort of get information out there about who you are and what you're about. It's the biggest ambassadorship opportunity you can have. So that will be the first thing. The other thing is sort of back to what I was speaking to earlier about the website, making sure your website is functional and that it's easy to use. Again, everything isn't always about having, all of the bells and whistles. A lot of times folks aren't interested in all of the bells and whistles. They just want to be able to get on your website page, your web page, and find exactly what they're looking for, place their order, and be done with it. So just ease of use. And beyond that, in terms of messaging, I think it's usually easier if you can pare it down. So come up with a theme for whatever it is you're trying to communicate. Even if the communication is just about your new product offerings, for example, pick 3 things or 3 to 5 key points you want people to remember. Make it simple, put it on like a middle school, elementary school level, get your point across. And again, do it in several different ways. I think those are things to be very helpful.
Awesome. Yes, absolutely. And now, Amy, can you talk to us a little bit about the importance of putting your employees, which are your greatest assets, well-being above all else, when it comes to, and the best practices to do so, especially when you're planning a business continuity plan?
So I think a lot of businesses found out how valuable their employees really are to them through this. I'm sure they thought they were valuable, but found out even more so when, maybe they dealt with employees that have been out, have to be quarantined, different things, and they know that if these employees don't show up, that their business doesn't run. So they are a great asset to all business owners. I would say to have some really, I would say it's a good time to go back through their HR policies, maybe make some changes to them, especially in the environment if they're having to now work remote. I think communication is a really big key, because all those of us who are used to working in an environment where we're with each other every day and being able to communicate pretty easily, and now that's changed. And so I think the worst thing that you could do is to not communicate often with your employees, and make them feel like they're kind of on an island out by themselves. And I think the bigger the company, the harder that gets. And when you have, hundreds of employees, trying to always stay in constant contact with them. But I think, all of these different meeting platforms virtually are great to even host those types of meetings. I know Regions, for an example, we have always had an evergreen week where in the fall we always celebrate, all of our employees, and it's kind of an employee appreciation week. And I wasn't sure where that was going to go this year, because a lot of that is in-person gatherings, dinners or lunches or different things and events throughout the entire week. Well, we did all of it virtual this year. And so we were able to do a big Zoom meeting. There were some different games and activities, things that we could do ahead of time and then come together on a meeting like that and participate in it. And, it didn't feel exactly the same, but I think it was still great that they still moved forward with it. So I think any kind of little employee appreciation events that people can do virtually right now would be fantastic. But really just going back through and revamping their HR guidelines and making sure that those policies are strong. Make sure they're clear and concise, especially I think around anything related specific to the pandemic and quarantining and sick time, and how people, I think a lot of, companies didn't know how to handle this and probably still don't. And they're having to kind of, fly by the seat of their pants as things come up and address those issues. And so I think trying to find a resource to help you go through those things and be clear and concise so everybody's on the same page and understands what's expected of them through this process. Also with the remote environment, making sure you have clear and concise guidelines for that too, and what the expectations are, because you have a lot of hourly employees that do clock in and clock out remotely, but then you also have salaried employees. And so what does that look like? You have some that are used to doing all of their contact with customers face to face, and now they can't do that. So what's the expectation around that now? Do you expect them to go out and do those face to face meetings anyway in, a safe environment? What measures are you putting in place to help them with that? Just a lot of consistency across the board and being clear on those types of things. And so there's a lot of HR companies. We have a partner, Paycor, that we partner with, and they do a lot of the HR, payroll, and those types of policies. But I'm sure other banks have different ones that they work with. There's a lot in the area. I'm sure the chamber has some that you're involved with as well. So I think if business owners reach out to those same resources we keep listing, they could get in touch with the people they need to help them through that process.
So absolutely, definitely changing and understanding the environment in order to be able to ensure that your employees, their needs are met. And it's interesting you say that. In my previous, when I first started banking, well, when here in Louisiana, my first banking job was actually at Regions, and I do miss the evergreen week. So I'm glad that you guys had that this year despite the pandemic. So I have one last question, and this question is actually for both of you. Is there anything that you both feel that we might have left out today that we should address as part of this conversation? Any final takeaways before we open the floor for our audience questions?
I don't think you left anything off, Marina, but one thing we have not said, and I'm sure it's because we're trying to all stay positive and keep people's spirits lifted. But there sometimes comes a time when, for a particular business, for whatever reason, you may have to start coming up with that exit strategy sooner rather than later. And so, it's almost like the advice you wish you could have given the neighbor, who lost the house in a foreclosure. Well, it's like, well, why didn't you sell it when it got bad, right? Um, so for businesses, there sometimes comes a point where it makes more sense for you to cut your losses than to continue spiraling out of control. And so what I would say is, as you're accessing all of your financial information and you're sitting down and you're going through and doing the hard look, that you make sure that you can remain viable. And if for whatever reason you're beginning to look down the road and you don't see sort of a clear direction for the next, 6 to 12 months, now may be the time to figure out how to maneuver out and pivot into maybe another business, or consider some other things. And so I just think we would be remiss if we didn't at least touch on that. And your same resources that we talked about in order to survive and thrive in a pandemic are the same resources you should consider tapping into when you're considering exiting.
Absolutely. Amy?
I'm glad you mentioned that, Ashley, because that's very true. And I guess just to kind of piggyback on that, don't let your pride get in the way, because I know business owners, that's their baby.
Yeah.
They've started, they've raised it, and they've built it up to what it is now. And it's like, let me just keep it going, and I think I can do it. But try not to let that pride get in the way. And if it's time, go ahead and get something out of it. Don't let it get to the point where you can't get anything out of it, and then you just have to shut the door and you're basically paying bills off at that point. So I would echo everything Ashley said about that. So I hope that doesn't come for a lot of business owners, but the reality is it's already come to some, and I'm sure there'll be more. So, but get with those resources for help.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, do we have any questions from the audience? I don't think we do at this moment. I don't see any on the Q&A box. So with that being said, I want to thank you ladies for spending this hour and a half with us this afternoon, and everyone that's in attendance and anyone that would reach this seminar or hear it later on as it's been recorded. So this concludes our module presentation for the evening. Thank you again for joining us today. In closing, I hope that this has given you some clarity on the various strategies and resources that can help you implement these strategies immediately. At the Hispanic Chamber, we are here as a resource partner to our community, and we will continue working hard to bring you the most up-to-date and current information available as it pertains to the recovery of our business community. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Maida, for the invitation and moderating this panel, and I had a great time seeing everyone and chatting this afternoon with y'all.
Thank you, Marina, and thank you again to the amazing partners. We're so blessed because the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce would not be able to move forward our mission without partners like Ashley, Amy, Marina, and your banks. Right now, our work is more important than ever. This technical assistance, the resources, the tools that we have to make sure our business owners understand is at very critical point and focus in our strategic plan moving forward for, you know, the next couple of years. This is something we were doing, but of course now it's at an increased level, and without your help, we would not be able to do it. Many of the things that you mentioned today, and thank you for always including the chamber, are things that we do on a regular basis. But we want to make sure that we build that capacity for business owners, those relationships. Many of them were faced with that reality when they were trying to apply for the SBA loans, or, you know, the PPP or the grants, and even the Main Street recovery. Not having, you know, the good knowledge about their financials, not having the banking relationship. So we want to change that, and we are going to work very hard to make sure that we keep providing this information, and that we are that trusted voice for this the business owners. You mentioned something else, the business to business relationships. We have something that we call a peer-to-peer roundtable. That's a perfect opportunity. And so please follow our social media. We are in every platform, and also sign up for our newsletters and our communications, because we are constantly putting out programming that is valuable and will help you, you know, move forward or make those important decisions in your business. So with that, thank you again on behalf of the chamber, the board, and thank you all for being here today. We look forward to seeing you very soon, if not in person, through these formats, but I think we'll come in 2021 to some kind of hybrid situation where we can at least have some people in person and then some through the technology platforms. Until then, I wish all of you a happy holiday season, and definitely a prosperous and healthy new year. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Maya. Thank you, ladies.
Right,
Yeah,
thank you. Have a good
night,
evening.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.